everyone. Adam here, So Wizard Podcast, sitting down with Daniel. Oh, I always do this. I forgot to ask the pronunciation of your last name.
Daniel B. Iske.
B. Iske. Okay, cool. Thank you. I was going to say Isk, and I'm glad I asked.
I get it all the time.
So, Daniel, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully the dog's not too loud. It's a wild day here.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about your latest project, The Dead Hour, 12-part anthology series. How did that come about? Because you're the co-creator as well as the director?
Yes. My co-creator Scott Coleman and I, we did a horror film before this, and that was my first kind of foray into horror, and I just really enjoyed it. So we knew we wanted to do horror again, but we didn't want to do a movie. So we kind of thought of an idea of let's do a series so we can tell multiple different stories. So that was kind of the main genesis, and then we kind of just came up with this platform of, okay, what if there's a late night mysterious radio DJ, kind of an NPR lady, and she's telling these stories, and she introduces the stories, and then we delve in and see the stories. So we were kind of, we were fans of the Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, so we were kind of following along those lines with our own kind of take on it.
It definitely had that kind of vibe, especially I just saw the first episode, the pilot, the donor.
Sure.
And it definitely had that kind of Twilight Zone vibe where there's a bit of a morality tale in there too, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, we that kind of does play out. Like, we kind of wanted to do that where we're kind of making, there's in some episodes the monsters, we're kind of humanizing them, and in other episodes there's no monsters, the people are the monsters. And so we kind of played on that with some social commentary and some other things that we kind of like to play with and put in there.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done. And I saw on IMDb that you started making this a little while ago.
Yeah, it's taken us a while to kind of get here. So we filmed the 12 episodes over a couple years a while back. And we were, we first kind of started off planning on it being a web series, because these streaming platforms really weren't where they are at now, and then about 2 years ago is when we kind of came in contact with Joe and Terror Films and kind of found that partnership that we thought would be good for the show.
That's really cool. Because the donor, the one that I got to see, you could have made it a month ago. Like, it felt so
Right.
timely. So it's awesome that worked out.
Yep.
I mean, I guess not awesome for the state of the world, but awesome for your short.
Right. Yeah.
Was there a time, because you made them a couple of years ago, was there a time where they're shelved and you're just kind of like, what do we do with this, or do you move on to other projects?
We kind of took a break, and we were just trying to find the right, like I said, the streaming platforms have evolved so much over the years. We were kind of just in a holding pattern, waiting to see if we finally found a spot that was, good for it. I mean, we filmed these low budget, small crew here in Omaha, Nebraska. So it's not like we were on the coasts or anything like that. And so yeah, we were lucky to finally find the right partner to, get this out here so people could see it.
Yeah, that's great. It's cool on Nebraska, because that's something I've noticed doing these kind of interviews and watching these screeners, is that the better these streaming platforms do, while it's hurting movie theaters and things, which isn't great, it is great for indie creators like you. You don't have to move to LA and spend millions of dollars to make your shorts. You can do it your way and get it out there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we didn't let a lot of people tell us, wow, we can't believe that was shot, in Omaha. So yeah, it's a great outlet for filmmakers anywhere to be able to just, we were able to use local talent, and give people, a cool opportunity that, is now coming for them. So
Yeah, that's got to be great for your actors too, is because you want to tell a story as a creator, writer, director, but there might be an actor who's like, I love doing this, but my life is here, my family's here. I can't go to LA and be a waiter for 10 years before I get
right.
something.
Yeah, and each episode has its unique own cast. So we were able to use a lot of different people, and and it was, they say, it was cool to have this opportunity, even if it's a small episode, to be part of a bigger show. We kind of have one big kind of family, even though most people didn't work together with each other.
Right, yeah, but all for one common goal.
Yep.
I love that about horror, is the anthology thing, because you have a 12-part series now, like you're saying, 12 individual stories, 12 new casts. You could do it over a couple years, and the first shot in episode one doesn't necessarily have to match up with the last shot you shoot. And episode
Right.
one might not have even been shot first. So
Right.
it's cool. You can kind of piecemeal it like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the episodes are we did kind of film them all over the place, and so there's no order to them, you know. You can kind of see evolution from the beginning to the end with our, production values and things like that as we kind of got our legs underneath us. But yeah, just the overall, DJ Raven, played by Melissa Holder, like her intros are really the only thing that kind of streams all of them together.
Is there a common like a through thread, like a theme? I mean, you said there's a little bit of the morality and stuff, but is it all kind of one message, or are they each totally standalone?
Yeah, they're each kind of standalone. It's a mix of there's absurd and fun episodes like Alcoholic Vampire, where we kind of have some fun with the genre, and then there's some intense, disturbing episodes too, where we really hold a mirror up to people's faces or these characters who are doing terrible, terrible things.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that for anthology series. You don't have to connect them. I actually kind of find ones that start as anthology series and then they go on maybe too long or something, but they start to try to meld it all together and then
Mhm.
reverse engineer and say, no, this is actually connected. It almost falls apart for me.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. There's no through line. There's no connection except for DJ Raven. Introducing each tale just kind of is its own standalone kind of just story, urban legend, that you would kind of hear around a campfire or something.
Yeah, very cool. When this does come out on streaming, is it going to be a block like a movie, or is it going to be episodic?
Um, I'm not quite sure. I think for some platforms they're kind of putting the seasons together as like a block, and then other platforms I think the episodes will be individually on their own. So
Oh, very cool. So however you want to digest it, I guess.
yep, yep, definitely.
To rewind a little bit, you said that you did a movie and then this. Was the movie the first thing? Like, is your background in any kind of production, or do you just on the side decided I want to go for this?
No, I went to school for filmmaking, and so I was doing little indie comedies and some other things. So Fields of the Dead was our first like horror film that I ever did. So, but I was doing films before that, just not in this genre.
Okay, cool. What was your genre of choice before you got into horror?
I was just trying everything. I was trying comedy, I was trying drama, political thriller, things like that. I was just trying to, throw against the wall, try different things, kind of diversify myself. And then, when we made the film, it was just, we filmed it out on a farm somewhere, and it was just fun to be there with the cast and making it. And it was just a rewarding experience.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard that from a couple other people that they didn't necessarily start in horror, but they kind of fell in love with it after making it.
Yeah, it's just you have to be so creative on set, with props, everything from filming to even editing, doing all the post effects. It was just a really enjoyable experience in that genre that I had never experienced before.
Nice, yeah. For your previous projects as well as the Dead Hour, it like for the Dead Hour, you're co-creator. Did you also do any of the writing, or did you find other short scripts and?
Um, Other than one episode, me and Scott were the main writers. I directed every episode, but like it's pretty much half and half. I think I would have to go back and look. But yeah, I wrote a couple, Scott wrote a couple, and then Ryan Long wrote one. But it was pretty much just us. So we, when we started, um, we would just write in notebooks, just jot down ideas. Like one idea was a man's digging a hole in his backyard. Why? Like, and then we would just kind of go from there. We'd have a little bit we'd go some would go somewhere, some didn't, and the 12 that ended up were the ones obviously that came together the best for us. So
Very cool. Like, quick aside, Ryan Long, the comedian, or just somebody else named Ryan Long?
a different Ryan Long.
Okay, so that's a small world.
I guess it's a pretty common name. Mine's a little more unique. So
Yeah, that's true. Ryan Long is, yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, the thing you said about a guy digging a hole and what is that about? That's I think one of the most fun things about like the short horror genre is like a story needs to be a story. You have to start with a story, and if you were trying to write like a big dramatic piece, it would be really hard to get that off. A man digs a hole. But when
Right.
you're doing a horror short, it's like a man digs a hole. Go wild. That's got to be so fun to.
Yeah. it was really cool to watch, to look back in the notebook now and to see, oh man, that's how that started, and even though they're only about 18 minutes each, DJ Raven introducing it at the beginning, her 1 minute, kind of intro, is we're able to set the audience up to give them what they need to know, to kind of then just go right into it and jump into the story that we're trying to tell. So that's helpful too.
Yeah, her as the narrator, your crypt keeper, your Rod Serling.
Yeah.
She does a really good job. Was that something you guys auditioned, or did you just happen to know her?
I had known her like years and years before, but she just came into, a regular open audition. We weren't necessarily casting for that role. We were just kind of opened it up, and she just grabbed us, our attention, and we knew what we wanted her to be, but she really just brought it, to life, better than we could have ever hoped for.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot, especially the way it was shot of the Warriors.
Yes,
There's the DJ.
that was part of our inspiration. Actually, that movie is awesome.
Very cool. That's great. So she's your only consistent thing, as you said. Was her parts written before the shorts, or did you have them all shot? She got to see them and then play off of that.
The first season, actually, she never saw any of the full scripts or any of the episodes before. So I think the first season we shot all of her stuff at the very beginning before we shot anything else, and then later on, um, it was kind of just at random time. So yeah, she would, um, we would tell her what it was about, and she had her script, but she never saw anything beforehand.
It's kind of funny because that's the magic of movie making is that she has this kind of air of she's letting you in on a secret, but she
Yep.
didn't know the secret. So
Right. Which kind of makes it more mysterious, but yeah. And she would always say, "I can't wait to see this episode. This sounds good," or something like
yeah, right. Yeah, she gets done with her part. She's like, that does
that.
sound good.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you shot these kind of, I don't want to say sporadically because that makes it sound like unorganized, but you shot them over some time a couple years ago. Did you ever get to screen them with a live audience or like film festivals or anything like that?
Yeah, we did a couple festivals back, right when we were filming, and so we did get to watch them with a couple live audiences, which was really cool too.
Yeah, that sounds like it's got to be kind of the biggest payoff. People are shocked at the right places, laughing at the right places, that kind of deal. It's got to be so fulfilling as a creator.
And then to be able to talk to audience members after, that come up
Oh
and
yeah.
hear their feedback is really a really cool thing too.
Did you do any kind of Q&As for that, or was it just
Oh
people
yeah.
talk to you?
Well, yeah, both. We did some Q&A sometimes with moderators, but then, people would just come up to you in the lobby or afterwards and talk to you about it, which is always a cool thing too.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Just with it being, I wish I got to see more than one episode. I mean, I'll definitely be watching May 12th when it comes out, so we could go into more detail
Sure,
specifically.
sure.
Um, but it's just cool. I just love the horror anthology. I know I've said that before. It sounds like a broken record now, but it's just such a genius idea. And when you're writing these scripts, I mean, I know you said your idea could just come from one line in a notebook. Was it ever hard to come up with the next one, like feeling you had to up the ante, or some of maybe your ideas were going down too much the same path?
I think um y- it was more about the production value. We really wanted to keep stepping that up because we kind of thought, this is think we're kind of onto something, here. And, what started as just us having, we just wanted to do something fun was like, okay, I think let's step this up. Let's do this episode that maybe we didn't think we could do, in the first season. So it was more of kind of that process.
That's cool too, because as indie creators, you're working with like micro budgets, but money doesn't mean quality. Like pouring your hearts into it, I think, does come through.
Yeah, like the second season, we had this episode Fright Fest. We wanted to film it in an old theater with a lot of extras, and that was something we just couldn't do when we were starting out. And so, we really stepped it up in that way, and a bigger crew and better equipment.
Did that start to get intimidating? I mean, you had film experience before, so maybe you had done something of that scale.
It was a little bit. I was like, wow, we have like crew people doing stuff. Like what do I do? Just direct, Dan. So it was a little less guerrilla, filmmaking, and so that was something to get used to for me, anyways.
So intimidating, but also maybe a little bit of a relief.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
concentrate on directing. You don't have to do everything.
You
So
just had to wear one hat that day.
right, exactly.
Nice. As far as writing more horror and things like that, are you working with anything else with your co-creator on the Dead Hour?
Not at the moment. We're kind of in a holding pattern because of all this. There was like COVID, and then we kind of entered into this right during that. So we've kind of been um, on this pattern. So I think after May 12th, I think we'll get our creative minds going again.
Yeah, that's true. You just because you're done shooting, it doesn't mean the project's done.
Not at all. It's been a long process. I didn't know that it would be this much, but yeah,
Do you like this side of it?
not particularly.
No. Okay.
I'm a little more introverted and shy, so um, you know, I tend to just like filming and editing, in that process. I do enjoy, talking to people and getting feedback, but um, I probably liked this more when I was a little bit younger, but
You just want to be creating behind the camera, behind a
yeah,
keyboard.
yeah, a little bit more. Yep.
Yeah. With the editing, did you also edit?
Yes, I did.
Very cool.
Yep.
As an outsider looking in, the thought of a director directing an entire, even if it is just a 20-minute short, and then somebody else taking all that footage and putting it together without talking to the director, that just it boggles my mind. I feel like you almost have to do both.
Yeah, it would be weird for me. I know for this, the trailer that we have, they did, and it was so weird to watch, somebody else, do that. But all the episodes I edited because I'm just kind of a control freak when it comes to that. It's just like when I'm directing, I almost know exactly how I'm going to edit it, beforehand, and so it's just kind of it's second nature to just sit down and just, my mind has already cut it in my head, before I even do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know it's a time intensive process and it's a labor of love, but as an editor coming from the outside, it's almost more intimidating when you already know what you're looking for. You already see it in your head.
I think it would be hard for me to let go, of editing. It just kind of
That
feels,
too.
just like I don't know. It just feels like it fits together. It's just like an extension of the directing process for me, anyways. So,
And you probably have a good idea of like, okay, you get that scene, you're happy with how it came out. You're like, now I need this scene. Where is it? Instead of like, well, what comes next?
right. Yep. Exactly. Absolutely.
Have you had a project where you were the director and someone else edited and you were just kind of like, I don't know what to do here? Or vice
Uh,
versa?
I don't think so. I do a lot of kind of corporate editing where I don't shoot it, but I don't know that I've not creatively. I just always am.
Mhm.
I'm involved in the writing process at least at some degree, and then I've always directed and edited at the same time. So it's just kind of always been my mo.
That makes sense. When you say direct and edit at the same time, do you mean per project, or do you mean literally mean like you shoot and then you take that day's work and you start editing it in production of shooting?
Sometimes I would, because when we were doing the seasons, we would be all over the place. We wouldn't just do one episode. We would have like, you know, one week we're shooting a day on a Friday night of this episode, and the next week we're shooting day two of a different episode.
Mhm.
So I would kind of sometimes I'd wait till we were done shooting. Sometimes I was like would start editing even before we even finished. So
Yeah, just kind of however it
yeah,
happened to work out.
yep, kind of rolled with the punches.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where indie guerrilla filmmaking is probably really hard to be like, here's my plan, I'm sticking to it.
Right.
It's got to always be adapting.
Yeah, there's always curveballs. There's always things you just have to deal with. Especially if certain locations are hard. You got to be dealing with the owners and stuff like that, and so there's always challenges with crew and schedules. Because everybody kind of has other jobs too. It's not like we're working with just actors that just can do that for all
Mhm.
all day. So there's a lot of kind of just unflattering things that just are always in the way. And have to deal with.
How was all that, especially in a place not necessarily known for shooting movies? Like I'm sure in New York City or Los Angeles, you go into an old theater like you need it and say, "Hey, we want to shoot here," and they just pull out a calendar and say, "Where can we fit you in?" But in Nebraska, was it kind of like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, they would be like, "You wanna do what?" And it's like in the theater, One night we just rented one of the theaters, but they were still open. And then another night we had to come in at like, 11 o'clock after the last movie, and we filmed overnight till like, 8 the next morning.
Oh, yeah.
So that we could have the whole theater, to ourselves. And so those are things like it's hard. It's hard on the actors, crew, and the locations. Yeah, they're like, okay, they don't know what's going on either. So it's a challenge.
Was there another side to that coin where maybe because there's not stuff shot there all the time, people were excited and enthusiastic, or was it
Oh, for
more
sure.
confusion? Oh, okay, cool.
Oh yeah, I think after the initial like what, you know, we'd have people that were coming out of movies, and we were kind of in the lobby doing our makeup and stuff, our makeup artists, and they would be like, "Oh, we want to be extras," and just like be a part of it. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Finding extras probably wasn't hard at that point, especially
No,
at a movie theater when they're already movie fans coming
right?
out.
Yeah. So they'd be like, "Oh yeah, let's do that." So that was cool.
Nice. For things like makeup, lighting, all that kind of stuff, was your cast or was your crew uh, professional in the industry, or were you just kind of taking people you knew and explaining what needed to get done? I just don't know how Nebraska is as finding like that
Um,
kind of
it was a
talent.
mix of both, as people that were kind of, doing corporate stuff or maybe their own films mixed with people who were just kind of interested. We would put out a call, anyone who's interested. So we had a lot of people who just wanted to be a part of it, that maybe didn't have much experience. We just kind of, learned on the fly. So
That had to be an extra challenge.
yeah. So it was a mix, but everybody, works well together, and by the end, again, one big family.
Right. With your cast changing every short, did your crew change substantially every short as well?
Um, it was again another mix of it, depending on who could be there at what time. But for the most part, it was pretty consistent. People were able to be there for each episode. So
That's good. Yeah. Did you have any like say an episode you started shooting in whatever year and then you're shooting other stuff a year later, was there ever such a gap where you're editing something after it's already shot, you thought you were done and you needed other shots but it was difficult to put it all back together?
I don't think so. I think there was only once or twice where we had to go back way later and kind of film a pickup or something like that. We were with the movie before that, we had a lot of that stuff that we had to do like way later on, but not with the episodes. They were pretty tight, and um, um, we didn't have to do a whole lot of that.
Was that just the nature of storytelling, the nature of it being a short, or was it just you learned from experience?
I think both. I think us, we had more experience, and them that being shorter, they were tighter, and we didn't have to like fill in gaps with the story or anything because it was so kind of buttoned up.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Where you have a hour and a half, 2 hour movie, there's a lot more that could fall through the cracks than a 20 minute where
Right.
everything is very important to the plot.
Yep.
That's really awesome. I just love hearing that you're doing this in Nebraska, or people can do it in Virginia or wherever. You don't have to be in these 2 to 3 hubs. Like you don't have to move to Toronto or LA or New York City, and you can do it. The barrier to entry is so great now.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love it. I love it.
And even if you couldn't find like Terror Films who you're working with on this, at a point you could put it on YouTube and even try to monetize that way if it came down to it, just to reclaim your budget.
Yeah, there's so many avenues now for filmmakers. It's just really cool. I mean, it's just it's a game changer from where it was like 10, 15 years ago, where there were a lot of roadblocks, that aren't there now.
Even as far as equipment goes, in the last 10 years, it has to have changed by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't have to have a $20,000 budget anymore to make something look good. As long as you're telling a good story,
Mhm.
people will can enjoy it and will watch.
What kind of equipment did you use? I mean, you had experience before, you were working on other movies and stuff, so were you pretty well equipped, or
Yeah, we were shooting on a DSLR. I think it was a 5D at the time. And since I do that for a living, I had a lot of the equipment too, and we'd rent some here and there, but it wasn't a huge setup, but we had a lot of toys to play with at the time. So
yeah, that 5D was like the camera for years. It might
oh
still
yeah,
be, I don't know.
it's still I have a similar one at like a Sony 7S, but yeah, it's similar with the lenses and stuff now. It's just a great tool. It looks great and very versatile.
And with the digital editing, you could basically just go to Best Buy and you're all
Yep,
set.
absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Daniel, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. I
Thank you.
really, really liked The Donor. I look forward to seeing the other 11 episodes.
I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, do you want to give people one more plug for the Dead Hour, and then you can plug your socials or anything else you want to point people to?
Yeah, May 12th, it's coming out on a bunch of streaming platforms, Tubi, Amazon, Kings of Horror, Google Play, a bunch of different stuff. The Dead Hour page is on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram, Omaha Dan. And yeah, hope everyone checks it out.
Awesome. Well, Daniel, thank you again. That was a great conversation, and looking forward to
Awesome.
the Dead Hour.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Definitely.
All right.